Welcome to a journey through the world of paradoxes, where logic fades away and mystery takes its place. These paradoxes aren't puzzles to solve, but experiences to reflect upon, ideas that challenge our understanding but don't need answers. Over the next few hours, we'll explore 20 paradoxes, each one offering a glimpse into the unknown. Now, close your eyes, breathe deeply, and let go. Let's begin this journey together. The paradox of the dreaming mind. Imagine for a moment that everything around you, the room you're in, the thoughts running through your mind, the very sensation of being here, is simply a dream. It feels so real, doesn't it? The weight of your body resting in this space, the warmth of the air, the sounds in the distance. Everything seems vivid and clear, and yet, what if none of it is real? What if, in this very moment, while you're lying here listening, it's all just a creation of your mind, a dream, an illusion? What if your senses, your thoughts, even the very idea of being awake are just fragments of a deeper, subconscious world? This is the paradox of the dreaming mind. How can you be sure that the world around you is real? How do you know that everything you perceive with your senses isn't simply your brain weaving a vivid dream? Your body feels heavy. Your thoughts seem so clear. But what if it's all just a figment of your imagination? A dream. A perfect, detailed dream. Pause for a moment and feel the uncertainty of that thought. What does it mean to be truly awake? If you are dreaming, can you tell the difference between what's real and what's not? It's an unsettling idea, isn't it? But let it float softly through your mind without any urgency to solve it. Just allow the question to linger, like the last whispers of a dream as you wake up. Take a deep breath in, and as you exhale, let go of the need to know. Let the paradox simply be. You don't need to solve it. Just let it unfold in your thoughts as you gently drift further into relaxation. Now, imagine for a moment that you're walking through a quiet forest. The trees stand tall, their branches swaying softly in the breeze. The leaves rustle gently above you, and you can hear the distant chirping of birds. You breathe deeply, and the air is fresh, so real, so tangible. As you walk, the ground beneath your feet feels firm and solid, every step grounding you more and more into this place. And yet, there's a question that lingers just at the edge of your awareness. What if none of this is real? What if this forest, these trees, the cool breeze you feel on your skin are all just a creation of your mind? What if everything around you is part of a dream that your mind has carefully constructed while you sleep? This thought invites you to consider that everything you experience might not be as real as it seems. Every sound, every sensation, every moment could be a product of your imagination, just as in a dream. But how can you know for certain? How do you know if you're walking through this forest or simply imagining it as you rest? Take a few moments to pause and just allow this thought to settle into your mind. Don't try to figure it out. Don't rush. Just let the question hang there as you continue walking slowly through the forest, the sound of your footsteps barely audible in the soft earth beneath you. The trees, the wind, the path you walk on, they are all here, but can they be trusted? Could they be part of a dream, a vivid, intricate creation of your subconscious mind? You don't need to answer this. Just feel the sensation of walking, of being here, as the paradox swirls gently around you like the leaves in the wind. As the thought lingers, let it become softer, like the quiet rustle of leaves in the distance. Feel your body relax with each breath, letting the uncertainty dissolve into the calmness of the moment. Let the forest wrap around you like a peaceful blanket, providing comfort without needing to know the answers. Imagine you continue walking, each step becoming lighter. With every step, the ground beneath your feet feels more solid, but the idea of whether or not it's real slowly fades into the background. The trees stretch higher, the birds sing more clearly, and yet, all of it could be simply the product of a sleeping mind, creating these vivid sensations. What if, with every step you take, you're not really walking on solid ground, but walking through the images created by your mind? The question of what is real and what is not slowly becomes less important, and all that remains is the sensation of walking through the forest, the feeling of peace as you move through it. Now, feel the softness of the earth beneath your feet, the way each step feels lighter, as though the ground itself is welcoming you. Picture the breeze passing through the trees, the light glinting through the leaves in patterns that change with each step you take. There's nothing to solve. You don't need to answer any questions. Just let yourself walk deeper into the peaceful rhythm of the forest. As you continue walking, imagine the trees becoming more distant and the air around you becoming calmer. Let the feeling of walking through this peaceful landscape fill your mind. No need to question it, no need to figure out what's real. Simply feel the calmness in the moment. Now, let the forest fade away slowly as the ground beneath you becomes softer and softer until you no longer feel it at all. Allow the sensation of walking to drift into the background as your body becomes heavier, more relaxed, your breath slows, and your body sinks deeper into relaxation. You are free now. There's nothing to figure out. There's nothing you need to solve. The paradox of the dreaming mind has faded away like a soft mist, leaving you in a deep, peaceful state. Just let go of everything. Let your thoughts slip away, like the leaves floating on a calm river. Take a slow, deep breath in, and as you exhale, feel your body relax even further. Let the weight of your body sink into the calmness of the moment. Your mind is at peace now. You don't need to solve the paradox. It's enough to simply rest in this feeling of peace. With each breath, you sink deeper into a state of relaxation. The paradox fades further into the distance, and all that remains is the gentle rhythm of your breathing, the quietness of your mind, and the peaceful stillness of the moment. Let yourself rest here, knowing that the mystery is safe and peaceful, and there's nothing you need to understand. As your body and mind rest, know that you are free, you are calm, and the only thing you need to do now is let go and drift deeper into sleep. 2. The infinite library paradox. Imagine a library that stretches on forever. It's a vast space, more immense than any library you've ever seen. As you walk down the long, towering aisles, you see endless shelves filled with countless books. The books seem to stretch out to infinity. There are books in every language, on every subject you could imagine, and on subjects you could never have dreamed of. Some books are worn, their pages yellow and crinkled from age. Others are brand new, fresh and clean, waiting to be opened. Now, here's the paradox. Every book in this library contains every possible combination of letters and words that could ever be written. Every story, every scientific discovery, every fact and fiction is contained in these books. But there's something strange about it all. Many of these books are nothing but nonsense. Some are filled with random letters, meaningless and impossible to understand. Others contradict each other with facts that can't possibly coexist. How do you find the truth in this library? With every turn of the page, you could discover something incredible. But for every amazing book, there are thousands of others that are completely nonsensical, leading you deeper into confusion. As you walk down the aisles, imagine yourself picking up one of these books filled with endless possibilities. You open it, and at first, the words seem like they could reveal something profound. But as you read on, Pippin, the words become gibberish. They don't make sense at all. The story spirals into confusion. You set the book down and pick up another, only to find that this one, too, is filled with random, incoherent words. Yet another book promises wisdom, but leaves you with more questions than answers. Take a moment to think about it. This library, though vast and full of infinite knowledge, is also full of meaningless chaos. In this vast sea of information, how do you find the truth? Where is the book that contains what you truly seek? And how can you trust what you read when every other page you turn leaves you more lost than before? As you wander through this infinite maze of books, imagine how easy it would be to get lost, to become overwhelmed by the endless options. There's so much to explore, so much to learn, and yet there's no way to know which book is worth opening. The library seems infinite, and in its infinity, it creates a sense of helplessness, a deep wonder of how something so vast could also be so disorienting. With each step, you feel lighter, as if the paradox itself is carrying you through the aisles. It's not a paradox you're meant to solve. It's something to simply explore, to reflect on the nature of knowledge itself. The library is as vast as the universe, yet in its boundless possibilities, it's just as confusing as it is enlightening. But you don't need to solve it. You don't need to find the truth in any particular book. The very exploration is what gives the library its beauty. Imagine yourself continuing to wander through the shelves. The books blur past you, their covers different colors and designs, each one a world of its own. The deeper you go, the more you realize that you're no longer concerned with finding the answers in the books. You no longer feel the need to search for truth in the pages. Instead, you start to embrace the journey itself, the simple act of walking through this infinite space. The paradox remains, but you've accepted it. It's not about solving it, not about finding that perfect book. It's simply about being here, in this moment, in this infinite space of possibilities. With each breath, you let go of the need to find answers. The paradox, though puzzling, fades into the background. The books around you become less important. The journey of walking through this infinite library, with its endless rows and shelves, becomes the focus. And the more you let go of the need to solve the paradox, the more at peace you become with the uncertainty of it all. There is no need to find the truth in these books. You don't need to pick up every book and find what it holds. Instead, imagine yourself slowing your pace, breathing deeply, and simply walking through the space. The paradox of the infinite library is no longer something to be solved, it's just something to be present with. As you walk, feel the soft rhythm of your steps, the calmness of your breath, the steady flow of time as it passes. Feel the weight of the paradox lift from your shoulders, like a soft mist that gradually dissipates. You no longer need to seek out answers. You've embraced the journey of exploration itself, and in that, there is peace. You walk, step by step, through the endless aisles of books, knowing that each turn is as valid as the last. It's not about the destination, it's about being here, in this moment, in this space. With every breath, feel yourself relaxing even deeper, your body becoming lighter, your mind clearer. There is no need to rush through the library. There is no need to find answers. Simply let the library be as it is, a vast, infinite space filled with possibilities and contradictions, and just allow yourself to drift through it. Take a deep, slow breath, letting the paradox of the library fade further into the distance. With every exhale, feel yourself becoming more relaxed, more at peace. The books around you no longer matter. You've let go of the need to figure everything out. Now, all that remains is the calm, quiet space of your mind. The paradox has softened, and you are free to simply rest in this moment. As you continue walking, let the shelves blur around you. Let the idea of infinite possibilities and contradictions gently fade into the background, like the fading light of the day. You don't need to solve the paradox. You don't need to understand everything. All you need to do is let go, breathe deeply, and feel the peacefulness that comes with simply existing in the present moment. The library is vast, the books endless, and the paradox of infinite knowledge continues. But now, you don't need to seek it out. You simply exist here at peace with the journey itself. 3. The paradox of reverse causality. Imagine for a moment that time doesn't flow in the way you know it. Instead of moving forward, time flows backward for you. Every action you take is a response to an event that hasn't yet occurred. Your present is shaped by your future, and everything you do is a reaction to something already in motion, but not yet experienced by you. In this strange world, you reach for a glass of water, but the reason you do it hasn't happened yet. You are acting in response to something in the future. It hasn't arrived yet, but somehow you know that the event is already destined to unfold. You can only act because the future is already mapped out. If you prevent something from happening, that means the event would never occur in the first place. You would never have had the chance to make that decision. You are reacting to a future that's already determined, and yet you still feel like you have the freedom to choose. But do you truly have freedom when every action is based on something that hasn't yet taken place? In this world of reverse causality, events don't unfold the way you expect them to. Every decision you make feels like a reaction to something that hasn't arrived yet. It's as if time is being rewound. Action is a response, but you can't feel the cause of your action until it happens. This paradox forces you to question the very nature of cause and effect. In the world you know, you make choices, and those choices lead to consequences. The past shapes the present, and the present shapes the future. But in this reversed world, it's the future shaping the present. It's the unknown outcome yet to happen that dictates everything you do. Now, picture yourself in this world. You are moving backward in time, each moment unfolding from the future rather than the past. Imagine walking down a quiet street. The people around you are making decisions, but those decisions haven't happened yet. They are simply reacting to what will happen. You see them choosing, walking, and talking, but they are all merely fulfilling a future that has already been written for them. Feel the heaviness of this idea. If every action is simply a response to something yet to come, can you truly make choices? Do your actions belong to you, or are they just reactions? The more you think about it, the less certain you become. It feels like you're in a play where the script has already been written, but you're still acting, unaware of what comes next. Your every move is just a response, not a choice. As you walk through this world, think about what it would be like to never truly act on your own accord. Each moment of your life is already planned out by something in the future, something that hasn't come yet. Even the smallest actions, reaching for something, opening a door, turning the page in a book, are all reactions to something that you haven't experienced. Now, think about how it would feel to live backwards. You'd be experiencing the consequences before the event itself. Instead of facing the present moment, you would feel like you were always reacting to something that will happen. The future is driving everything. It's as if your past decisions are merely preordained by what will happen in the future. How does this make you feel if your actions are merely a response? Can you ever truly change anything? The future, as it seems, holds all the power. It shapes your decisions, makes them inevitable. Yet, in this world, it seems as though you are still in control, still acting, only that your actions are reactions to a future that hasn't arrived yet. The paradox of reverse causality raises deep, unsettling questions about free will and time. If the future dictates your actions, do you really make choices? Is there any true freedom in your decisions, or is it all just a cycle of reactions to events that will take place later? How can you know if what you are doing now is truly your own choice or just a part of a larger, uncontrollable future? Imagine that every decision you make is a link in a chain, each one shaped by an event that you haven't yet encountered. You are not the creator of your actions. Instead, you are simply fulfilling the future, each step already mapped out for you. What happens to responsibility in a world like this? Are you responsible for your actions if they are based on a future that hasn't happened yet? Can you truly be accountable for decisions that are already determined? The deeper you go into this paradox, the more it seems like cause and effect loses its meaning. The past no longer causes the present, and the present doesn't shape the future. Instead, the future becomes the cause, determining every step, every choice. The question now becomes, if the future creates the present, can anything ever be called truly original? 3. The paradox of reverse causality. Imagine for a moment that time doesn't flow in the way you know it. Instead of moving forward, time flows backward for you. Every action you take is a response to an event that hasn't yet occurred. Your present is shaped by your future, and everything you do is a reaction to something already in motion, but not yet experienced by you. In this strange world, you reach for a glass of water, but the reason you do it hasn't happened yet. You are acting in response to something in the future. It hasn't arrived yet, but somehow you know that the event is already destined to unfold. You can only act because the future is already mapped out. If you prevent something from happening, that means the event would never occur in the first place. You would never have had the chance to make that decision. You are reacting to a future that's already determined, and yet you still feel like you have the freedom to choose. But do you truly have freedom when every action is based on something that hasn't yet taken place? In this world of reverse causality, events don't unfold the way you expect them to. Every decision you make feels like a reaction to something that hasn't arrived yet. It's as if time is being rewound. Action is a response, but you can't feel the cause of your action until it happens. This paradox forces you to question the very nature of cause and effect. In the world you know, you make choices, and those choices lead to consequences. The past shapes the present, and the present shapes the future. But in this reversed world, it's the future shaping the present. It's the unknown outcome yet to happen that dictates everything you do. Now, picture yourself in this world. You are moving backward in time, each moment unfolding from the future rather than the past. Imagine walking down a quiet street. The people around you are making decisions, but those decisions haven't happened yet. They are simply reacting to what will happen. You see them choosing, walking, and talking, but they are all merely fulfilling a future that has already been written for them. Feel the heaviness of this idea. If every action is simply a response to something yet to come, can you truly make choices? Do your actions belong to you, or are they just reactions? The more you think about it, the less certain you become. It feels like you're in a play where the script has already been written, but you're still acting, unaware of what comes next. Your every move is just a response, not a choice. As you walk through this world, think about what it would be like to never truly act on your own accord. Each moment of your life is already planned out by something in the future, something that hasn't come yet. Even the smallest actions, reaching for something, opening a door, turning the page in a book, are all reactions to something that you haven't experienced. Now, think about how it would feel to live backwards. You'd be experiencing the consequences before the event itself. Instead of facing the present moment, you would feel like you were always reacting to something that will happen. The future is driving everything. It's as if your past decisions are merely preordained by what will happen in the future. How does this make you feel if your actions are merely a response? Can you ever truly change anything? The future, as it seems, holds all the power. It shapes your decisions, makes them inevitable. Yet, in this world, it seems as though you are still in control, still acting, only that your actions are reactions to a future that hasn't arrived yet. The paradox of reverse causality raises deep, unsettling questions about free will and time. If the future dictates your actions, Do you really make choices? Is there any true freedom in your decisions? Or is it all just a cycle of reactions to events that will take place later? How can you know if what you are doing now is truly your own choice or just a part of a larger, uncontrollable future? Imagine that every decision you make is a link in a chain, each one shaped by an event that you haven't yet encountered. You are not the creator of your actions. Instead, you are simply fulfilling the future, each step already mapped out for you. What happens to responsibility in a world like this? Are you responsible for your actions if they are based on a future that hasn't happened yet? Can you truly be accountable for decisions that are already determined? The deeper you go into this paradox, the more it seems like cause and effect loses its meaning. The past no longer causes the present, and the present doesn't shape the future. Instead, the future becomes the cause, determining every step, every choice. The question now becomes, if the future creates the present, can anything ever be called truly original? You are free to just be, free to let go of the need to find the answers, knowing that the paradox is not here to be solved, but to be lived. With each breath, you let go of the tension in your mind. Feel your body become more and more at ease. The paradox continues to linger in the background, but now it's simply part of the calm environment. You no longer feel the need to control or change anything. You are free to just exist in this space. The paradox of the mirror image. Imagine standing in front of a mirror, gazing at your reflection. It's perfectly clear, isn't it? Every detail, every curve of your face, the way your eyes seem to shine in the light, everything is perfectly mirrored. You move your hand, and the reflection follows, almost like an exact replica of yourself. The mirror shows you exactly what you look like in that moment, capturing your image with perfect precision. But here's the paradox: the mirror can only show you what you've already done. It cannot show you what you are about to do. It's always a reflection of your past actions, never your future ones. When you move, the mirror reflects the movement that has already occurred, not the movement that is about to happen. So, if the mirror can never show you the future, how can you trust it? Your reflection is locked in the past, always trailing behind you. It's a perfect reflection of what you've just done, but it can never predict the next move, the next thought, or the next action you will take. What does this say about the nature of time? If the mirror is always a reflection of the past, does that mean we too are trapped in our own past? Our future remains a mystery, and we only ever see the after effects of our actions. The mirror paradox challenges the idea that we can ever truly see or understand the future, and it leaves us wondering about our place in time. Now, imagine that the mirror is not just a simple reflection of your face, but a reflection of everything around you: the room, the objects, even the air. Everything in the mirror is a reflection of the past. The paradox becomes even more puzzling. The future is forever out of sight, and the present is always reflected as something that has already happened. This paradox makes you think about the very nature of identity. If the mirror only shows you your past actions, then who are you in the present? Your reflection is always slightly behind you, showing who you were, not who you are becoming. Your future self is never in the mirror. You can see the shape of who you were, but the shape of who you are to become remains a mystery. Does this mean that we too are always reflections of our past selves, never fully able to see the person we are becoming? The mirror keeps us locked in a perpetual loop of reflection. We are forever looking backward, unable to see the path that lies ahead. The reflection is always slightly behind, never catching up to who we are right now. As you continue to gaze into the mirror, think about this. Every time you move, the mirror moves with you, but it only reflects the motion that has already happened. The future isn't visible in the glass. You can never see what you will do next. You can only see what you have already done. What happens when we try to understand our own future, to predict who we will become or where we will go? Are we forever trapped in the reflections of our past actions, forever looking backward as the future unfolds ahead of us? The paradox of the mirror seems to suggest that no matter how much we look into it, no matter how hard we try, the future remains hidden just beyond the reach of our reflection. Now, picture a moment where you see yourself in the mirror, standing still. You know that you are going to move, but the reflection remains perfectly still, waiting for you to take action. The mirror cannot predict your next move. It can only show you who you were the moment before you moved. Every action, every thought is reflected in the mirror, but it can never show you what will happen next. If the mirror only shows your past, does that mean we are forever stuck in time, unable to fully grasp who we are in the present or what we will be in the future? Every time we look at our reflection, we see ourselves frozen in the past, never fully experiencing the present moment, never able to understand where we are headed. This paradox is an unsettling thought, one that raises deep questions about identity, time, and causality. If our future is always just out of reach, like the reflection in the mirror, then how can we ever truly understand ourselves? We are forever shaped by what we have already done, never truly able to see what is yet to come. We are always looking backward, trapped in a world that only shows us who we were, not who we are to become. Imagine how that feels, living in a world where your reflection is always in the past. No matter how much you try to move forward, you are forever following behind yourself. The mirror is never ahead of you, never showing you what you will do next. It is always a step behind, just like your past. In the end, the paradox of the mirror makes us think about who we are and what we are becoming. It challenges us to wonder if we can ever truly escape the past. No matter how hard we try, we are always part of the reflection, always looking backward, never fully able to see where we're going. Now, as you sit with the paradox of the mirror, let it sink deeper into your thoughts. Feel the weight of the idea that the future is forever hidden from view. We can never see what will happen next. All we can do is react to the present as it continuously moves forward, always ahead of us. Let the mirror stay in the background of your mind as you continue to drift deeper into reflection. It may never give you the answers you seek, but it offers you a glimpse into the paradoxical nature of time and identity. The future remains unseen, just like the reflection in the mirror, but that doesn't make it any less real. It's simply a mystery waiting to unfold. 5. The memory paradox. Imagine that you remember things that never happened. These aren't just vague, distant memories. They are vivid, detailed recollections of moments in your life that you are sure occurred. You can see them as clearly as any other experience you've had. The smell of the air, the color of the sky, the conversations you had with people who are no longer in your life. These memories feel so real, so tangible, but when you look back, you realize none of it actually happened. These memories are false. They are fabrications of your mind, and yet they feel just as real as the memories you know for sure happened. How can this be? If your mind can create memories so vivid and detailed, how can you trust anything you remember? The memory paradox is a puzzle of perception and reality. You can recall events that never occurred, and in the moment, they feel like genuine experiences. The more you try to dissect it, the more unsettling it becomes. If memories can be false, how can you ever be sure that any of your memories are true? Imagine you are standing in a room, looking around at the familiar surroundings, the colors, the objects, the people you remember sharing moments with. Now, picture a memory from that room. It's clear in your mind, so vivid and detailed that you can almost touch it. But when you try to recall the circumstances of the event, you realize that it never happened. You feel the unease that comes with the realization that your mind can trick you into thinking false memories are real. Now, think about the deeper implications of this paradox. If your mind can create memories that never existed, what does that say about the very nature of your identity? Who are you if even the memories you hold most dearly could be imagined? Our memories are integral to who we are, to how we understand our lives and our experiences. But what happens when the foundation of those memories is unreliable? What happens when the mind invents memories just as easily as it recalls them? The paradox suggests that our memories may not be as trustworthy as we believe. How do we distinguish between real memories and fabricated ones? If a memory feels real, is it real, even if it's false? And if false memories can feel just as vivid and authentic, then how can we ever trust our own recollections of the past? Think about the people in your life, the relationships you've had, the moments you've shared. The details of these experiences are stored in your mind, forming the narrative of your life. But what if one of these memories was false? What if you had convinced yourself of a moment that never happened, a conversation you never had? The discomfort grows as you wonder which memories might be false. Which ones might have been fabricated by your mind to fill gaps in the story of your life? This paradox doesn't just challenge our perception of the past, it calls into question our understanding of identity itself. If our memories are not always true, if they can be altered or created out of thin air, then what does that say about who we are? How can we trust the very foundation of who we believe ourselves to be when even the memories that shape our identity might not be trustworthy? Imagine if, over time, you came to realize that all the moments you've cherished and held on to, the things that you thought defined you, were nothing more than stories you told yourself. The events you remember so clearly might be nothing more than carefully constructed fictions of your mind designed to fit together into a story of your life. The more you consider this paradox, the more unsettling it becomes. If memories are false, then what are they? Are they simply mental constructs? Or are they more like fragments of a dream, fleeting and fragile? Every detail of a memory feels so real, and yet you know that it could have been entirely invented by your mind. The line between reality and fiction becomes blurred, Take a moment to reflect on what it means to live with these memories, real or imagined. How much of your identity is tied to things that may not have ever existed? If your mind can create such elaborate false memories, does that mean your sense of self is just as fragile as those memories? And if memories can be false, what else might we be misremembering or misunderstanding about our own lives? Now, picture yourself standing before a mirror again. The reflection is the person you've always known, yet you cannot fully trust the memories of who they are, who you are. Every moment you think you remember is like a blurry image, shifting with each passing thought. The past, which you thought you understood so well, begins to fade like a dream slipping away upon waking. Each memory you hold becomes more fragile, more uncertain. The foundation of your life, your identity, starts to feel less solid, less real. As you stand there, looking into the mirror, you wonder, how much of what you think you know about yourself is really true? You've always believed your memories are reliable, but what if that belief is part of the paradox? What if your mind is simply filling in the gaps, constructing a version of your past that feels real but may not be? And as you consider this, let go of the need to figure it out. The paradox of the memory becomes a quiet presence in your mind. You don't need to answer it, to solve it. Just like the memories themselves, the paradox is fluid, shifting, and elusive. All you can do is sit with it and recognize that the story of who you are is never as fixed as you thought it was. It's more like a series of moments, fragments, and recollections, some real, some invented, woven together to form the narrative of your life. In the end, the paradox invites you to embrace the uncertainty. It's a mystery that you can't fully solve, just as you can't fully trust your memories. But that's okay. It's enough to simply be in the moment, experiencing your life as it unfolds, accepting that the past is always changing and never fully in your control. The paradox will always be there, but for now, let it rest. Let the uncertainty of your memories drift away as you let go of the need for clarity. Simply feel the freedom of living in a world where not everything is as it seems, and where even the things you hold most dearly may not be as solid as they appear. 6. The paradox of infinite creation. Imagine a world where creation has no beginning. Everything that exists was created by something else. But what was the source of the very first thing that was created? The universe, life, the stars, the planets, they all came from something. But what came first? In this world, there is no true beginning. Creation itself is part of an endless cycle, a loop that stretches infinitely backward in time. Everything is created by something, and that something was created by something else. But at some point, there must have been a starting point, right? Or is the process of creation infinite, with no beginning and no end? If creation is eternal, how can we make sense of its origin? The paradox of infinite creation asks a question that seems simple on the surface, yet holds an infinite depth. Where did creation begin? Now, think about how this paradox challenges the very nature of time. If creation is infinite, it means that the beginning is an illusion. There is no first cause, no starting point from which everything originates. The cycle of creation is self sustaining, repeating endlessly, with no true origin. In a world where creation has always been, how do we understand the concept of a first anything? There's no beginning to the process, only an endless chain of cause and effect. Picture the stars in the sky, all shining down upon you. Each star, each planet, each atom in your body was created by something else, and yet that thing was also created by something else. It stretches on forever, a web of creation with no starting point. Everything is connected, everything has a source, but none of it can be traced back to a single origin. It all loops back into itself, an infinite circle of creation and recreation, endlessly repeating. The deeper you think about this paradox, the more it becomes clear that the idea of an origin is an impossible concept in this world. If there is no true beginning, then creation has always been. And if creation has always been, then how do we ever define it? Can we say that something is created if it is simply part of an infinite cycle with no true origin? Does creation even have a meaning in such a world? Now, imagine walking through this world of infinite creation. You see a beautiful tree in front of you, its leaves rustling softly in the wind. It's a part of this cycle, created by something, and yet created by something else, with no true beginning. The tree itself is a product of an endless series of events, stretching backward through time. But if you could trace its origin, where would it lead? Would it lead to something else? Or does it simply lead back to itself in an infinite loop of creation? Consider the way you experience your own life. Every action you take is the result of something that happened before, and yet each moment feels like it starts anew. The cycle of creation is just like that. It feels as though each new moment is a fresh beginning, but it is actually a continuation of something much older, something that has always been happening. As you walk through this world, think about the very nature of your existence. You too are part of this infinite creation. Your thoughts, your actions, your body, everything that makes you who you are, is part of a cycle that has no beginning. You are the product of an endless chain of events, stretching back to the very beginning of time. But can there ever truly be a beginning if creation is infinite? As you reflect on this paradox, feel the weight of the question pressing into your thoughts. It's a question with no answer, a mystery that can never be solved. And yet, there is something deeply peaceful about it. In a world where creation never began, where time never started, there is no need to seek out an origin. The paradox is simply a reminder that some things are beyond our understanding. We don't need to know where creation began, because it has always been and will always be. Take a moment to sit with this thought. You don't need to solve the paradox. You don't need to answer the question of where creation began. You simply need to experience the mystery. And in that experience, there is peace, the infinite nature of creation, the idea that it has no origin, that it is a never ending cycle, is enough. You are part of that cycle, and in that, you are infinite as well. Let the paradox of infinite creation wash over you. It's a thought that has no answer, a question that can never be solved, but that's what makes it so powerful. It invites you to simply experience the infinite nature of existence, to feel the deep mystery of creation itself. There is no need for an answer. There is only the experience of being part of something much larger than yourself, something that has always existed and will continue to exist forever. As you let go of the need to answer this paradox, feel the calmness that comes with accepting the mystery. You are part of an endless cycle of creation, and that is enough. There is no origin, no beginning, no end. There is simply the continuous flow of creation, always unfolding, always renewing itself. And in that flow, you find peace. Now, as the paradox fades into the background, feel the weight of the question lift. There is no need to understand it all, just let the mystery be. The paradox is not something to solve, it is something to live with, to accept, and to experience. In the end, you are part of an infinite creation, just like everything around you, and in that, there is a quiet sense of belonging, a peace that comes from simply being. 7. The paradox of two futures. Imagine a world where two separate timelines exist simultaneously. One timeline shows a peaceful, calm life where everything goes according to plan. In this world, there are no major conflicts or disruptions. Life unfolds as expected, with happiness and serenity. The other timeline is the complete opposite, a life filled with chaos, turmoil, and unexpected events. Here, things don't go as planned. People struggle, face challenges, and experience hardship in a way that feels completely unpredictable. But here's the paradox: both of these futures exist at the same time. How can two completely different realities coexist? How can two futures, both of which seem so real, be true at once? The paradox challenges the very idea of one true future by suggesting that multiple, conflicting futures can exist side by side, each as real as the other. Imagine yourself in the midst of these two futures, living in both simultaneously. In one, everything is calm, everything is peaceful. You wake up in the morning and the world feels still. You go about your day without any major disruptions, and everything seems to fall into place. But in the other future, you face constant challenges. Nothing goes as expected. You're thrown into a whirlwind of unexpected events. Chaos, uncertainty, and confusion follow you wherever you go. The strange part is that these two futures aren't happening one after the other, they're unfolding simultaneously. Both realities are true in their own way, and yet they cannot exist together in a single, coherent timeline. It's as if the universe is split into two separate directions, each with its own set of rules and outcomes. How can this be? How can two completely opposite realities coexist? The paradox doesn't give you an answer. It simply forces you to confront the idea that reality is not as fixed as we think. If two different futures can exist at once, then what does that mean for the way we perceive time? What does it mean for the way we understand the choices we make? Are the decisions we make influencing which future we end up in, or are we simply living out two separate futures at the same time? Take a moment to think about the implications of this paradox. If two separate futures can exist, what happens to the concept of choice? In one timeline, everything you do leads to peace and calm. In the other, every action seems to bring about more chaos and difficulty. What if you're influencing both futures at once without even realizing it? If the future is not a single, fixed path, but a collection of possibilities, then how do we navigate it? Which future do we belong to? Can we even truly choose? The paradox of two futures also raises questions about destiny. If two completely different timelines exist, then which one is the true timeline? Are both equally real? And if they are, then what does it mean for the choices you make today? Every step you take could lead you down either path, yet both paths are unfolding in parallel. Is it possible to ever know which one you're living in? Or are we simply playing out multiple versions of ourselves in different timelines? Now, imagine that you are standing at a crossroads in this world of two futures. You see both paths ahead of you. One path is bathed in light and calm, leading toward a peaceful, contented life. The other is dark and uncertain, filled with twists and turns, leading into a future full of turbulence. Both futures are equally real, and as you stand at the crossroads, you feel a strange sense of being pulled in two directions at once. Which path do you choose? It's not a question that needs to be answered. The paradox shows you that both paths are real and both lead to different versions of yourself. No matter which way you go, both futures exist. The decision you make doesn't change the fact that the other future continues to unfold alongside it. Both futures coexist in this strange, timeless space, each one as true as the other. The more you think about this, the more you realize that the concept of a singular future might be an illusion. Perhaps there is no one true future, but instead a series of infinite possibilities, each one unfolding simultaneously. Every choice you make, every action you take, could be creating a different version of yourself, leading you down a path you never imagined. And in this world, each of those paths is real, each of those futures is true. Let the paradox unfold in your mind. Don't try to solve it. Just let it exist as it is, a reflection of the complexity and uncertainty of reality. The two futures, always existing side by side, serve as a reminder that our lives are not as predictable as we think. There is no single, unalterable path. Instead, there are infinite paths, all of which are real, all of which are happening at once. Each moment, each choice is part of a larger dance between these parallel futures. Feel the weight of this thought slowly fade away as you let go of the need to understand it fully. The paradox exists, but it doesn't have to be solved. It simply is. Just like the two futures unfolding before you, the paradox remains open, unresolved, and free to be experienced without the pressure of finding a concrete answer. Now, let the paradox become softer in your mind, fading into the background like a distant thought. You don't need to understand it all. The fact that two futures can exist side by side is a mystery, and in its mystery, there is peace. There is no need to choose between them, for they are both part of the same reality. The journey you are on is fluid, and you are part of an unfolding story that spans across infinite possibilities. Let go of any tension in your mind as you continue to reflect on the paradox. The futures are there, and so are you, moving through them, not bound by any one outcome, but free to exist in all of them. There is no final path to take, only the experience of walking, one step at a time, through a world of endless possibilities. 8. The paradox of self defining language. Imagine a language that defines itself. Each word in this language refers not only to its meaning, but also to the method of its own creation. The word apple doesn't just mean a fruit, it also refers to the process by which it was formed, the way it exists in the world. Each word, in fact, is its own definition. It doesn't need an external source or context to explain its existence. Each word is self contained, self defined. But here's the paradox: if language defines itself, how can we ever truly understand its meaning? Words are supposed to represent concepts, ideas, and things. They are supposed to give us access to the world around us. But if a word can only refer to itself, how can it communicate anything beyond its own boundaries? Imagine standing in a room where every object has its name, but those names don't come from outside sources. They don't refer to anything except their own creation. The chair in front of you isn't just a chair. It is a chair because it knows it is a chair. It defines itself as a chair, not because of anything external, but because it exists within the language that created it. Now think about how this would feel if everything you said referred back to itself. If each word you spoke only pointed to its own definition, would communication even be possible? Would you be able to understand anything at all? It's like trying to find your way through a maze where every turn leads you back to the entrance. Each word would be locked within itself, and no meaning could ever escape the cycle. In this world, you might try to express a thought, but your words wouldn't be able to carry the meaning you intend. Each word you speak would only refer back to the word itself, making it impossible to convey anything beyond the immediate definition. Every attempt to communicate would feel like a closed loop, an endless cycle of self referential words that only mean what they mean because of their own existence. But here's the deeper question: if a language defines itself, what happens to the concept of meaning? If every word is self contained, does meaning still exist outside of the language? Or is meaning limited only to the words themselves, locked within a system that can never be fully understood by anyone who is outside of it? This paradox makes you question the very nature of communication. Can words ever truly convey the reality they're meant to represent? Or are they forever bound by their own self referential limits? Think about trying to describe a concept like love. How could you express it if every word you used only defined itself? Love would only refer to love, and heart would only refer to heart. There would be no connection between the words and the world they were supposed to describe. Without this connection, how can anything truly be understood? As you reflect on this paradox, think about the language you use every day. Every time you speak, you're creating connections between words and the world around you. But what if, instead of those connections, every word could only refer to itself? Would communication still be meaningful? Would your words still carry the weight of their intended meaning, or would they fall flat, repeating themselves without ever reaching beyond their own boundaries? The paradox of self defining language forces us to question whether words can ever fully capture the essence of the world around us. If language is forever tied to itself, can it ever truly reflect the vast complexity of reality? Or is our understanding of the world limited by the language we use to describe it? Now, imagine trying to build a thought piece by piece with this self referential language. You start with a word, and it immediately refers back to itself, offering no explanation or expansion. Each word seems locked in place, unable to move beyond its own definition. There's no room for interpretation, no way to explore the depth of meaning. The more you try to expand your thoughts, the more you realize that you are trapped in a never ending loop of words that don't carry any true meaning beyond their own existence. You can see the words in front of you, but you can't touch them. You can hear them, but they don't seem to resonate. They exist, but they only exist in their own limited space. No matter how hard you try to break out of the cycle, you find yourself stuck, unable to communicate, unable to explain. The paradox is not just a limitation of language, it's a fundamental limitation of meaning itself. Now, picture yourself stepping away from the language. Imagine the world outside the words, the silent spaces between them. You begin to feel the quietness of this space, the one that exists before language was formed. In this silence, there are no words to define the things around you. There is only the experience itself. You begin to realize that, in this silence, meaning exists, without the need for language to define it. The paradox of self defining language is a reminder that meaning is more than just words. It's more than the definitions we assign to things. In the quiet space between the words, there's a deeper understanding, an experience of the world that goes beyond language. The paradox invites you to reflect on how much we rely on language to shape our perception of the world, and how much of that perception is shaped by words that define themselves. Let the paradox of self defining language fade into the background of your mind. You no longer need to solve it or even fully understand it. The mystery of language and meaning is just something to reflect on, a thought that exists on its own. You don't need to unravel it, simply sit with it, let it exist in your mind without the need to break free from its cycle. Let the paradox settle in as part of the experience of being, of thinking, of communicating in a world filled with words that define themselves. 9. The paradox of perfect knowledge. Imagine, for a moment, that you possess perfect knowledge. You know everything about the universe, from the smallest particle to the largest galaxy. You understand every law of physics, every truth of mathematics, every secret of life itself. You possess the answers to the deepest questions of existence, and nothing is beyond your understanding. You know how everything works and why everything happens. But here's the paradox. The more you learn, the more you realize how little you actually know. With every new piece of information, you uncover an entire new realm of knowledge that you never even considered. The more you learn, the deeper the gaps in your understanding seem to grow. The more you know, the more you are aware of how vast and infinite the universe is, and how much remains beyond your grasp. This paradox challenges our very notion of knowledge. If perfect knowledge exists, why does it seem to reveal an endless expanse of things you don't know? The more you know, the more you realize that you are only scratching the surface, and that the true depth of knowledge is infinite. Now, Imagine that as you delve deeper into the universe of perfect knowledge, you encounter an unending horizon of understanding. Every time you think you've reached the limits of your knowledge, you discover new layers, new dimensions of reality that you hadn't even thought to question. No matter how much you learn, there is always more to learn. The pursuit of knowledge becomes a journey that never ends because every answer you uncover leads to even more questions. This paradox is not just about what we know, but also about what we don't know. With perfect knowledge, you realize that the very concept of knowledge is infinitely complex. The more you understand, the more you realize that no matter how much you know, there will always be more that you don't understand. And in this realization, the pursuit of knowledge feels both empowering and humbling. Think about the implications of this paradox. We live in a world where we are constantly learning, expanding our understanding of ourselves and the universe around us. But perfect knowledge suggests that even if we could know everything, we would still only know a tiny fraction of what there is to know. The more we understand, the more we become aware of our ignorance. How does this make you feel? In a way, perfect knowledge leads to a deeper understanding of how little we truly know. The more we learn, the more we realize how infinite the world of knowledge is. In this way, the paradox of perfect knowledge suggests that true wisdom isn't just in knowing everything, it's in understanding the limitations of what we can know. The true power of knowledge lies not in having all the answers, but in knowing that there is always more to learn. Now, imagine standing on the edge of a vast ocean of knowledge where each wave represents a new discovery, a new truth about the world. You've learned everything there is to know in your lifetime, but with every wave, more knowledge is revealed. The ocean stretches endlessly in all directions, and no matter how far you go, it never ends. The more you explore, the more you realize that there is always something just beyond the horizon waiting to be discovered. In this world of perfect knowledge, you never truly reach the end of your understanding. The horizon is always shifting, always expanding. There is no final destination, only the continuous journey of discovery. The paradox lies in the fact that the more you know, the more you realize that perfect knowledge is unattainable, not because it's out of reach, but because the very nature of knowledge is infinite. The pursuit itself is endless. Feel the weight of this paradox as you think about it more deeply. Perfect knowledge does not mean knowing everything at once. It means understanding the endless possibilities of what can be known. The more you learn, the more you realize how vast the universe of knowledge is and how much is still beyond your reach. It's a paradox that challenges our need for certainty and perfection. The more we seek knowledge, the more we are reminded that we will never have all the answers. But that doesn't mean the pursuit of knowledge is futile. It simply means that knowledge, in its truest form, is infinite. As you reflect on the paradox of perfect knowledge, feel the sense of awe it brings. It invites you to accept the mystery of the universe, to understand that the quest for knowledge is not about achieving perfection, it's about embracing the endless journey of discovery. You can never know everything, but that doesn't make the pursuit any less valuable. The very act of seeking, of learning, is what gives life its depth and meaning. This paradox encourages you to let go of the need for complete understanding and to appreciate the beauty of knowledge in its infinite, evolving nature. The more you know, the more you realize that there will always be more to learn. And in that realization, there is a kind of peace, a peace that comes from knowing that the pursuit is just as important as the destination. Now, let this paradox settle into your thoughts. You don't need to understand everything all at once. You don't need to solve the mystery of perfect knowledge. Simply let it be. The more you know, the more you understand that knowledge is not something to be mastered, but something to be lived with, explored, and appreciated. The paradox is not a problem to solve, it's a journey to experience. 10. The paradox of the infinite traveler. Imagine a traveler setting off on a journey through the universe. With every step, the traveler moves farther and farther, leaving behind everything they once knew. But no matter how far they go, they always find themselves back at the starting point, as if the universe itself is folding in on itself, looping around in endless circles. No matter how many worlds they visit, how many distances they cover, they always return to the place where they began. This is the paradox of the infinite traveler, a journey that seems endless, yet the destination is always the same. Every step forward leads to the same place, as if the very fabric of reality itself is designed to bring the traveler back to where they started. The traveler moves forward, but in the end, they are always at the beginning, trapped in an infinite loop with no escape. Now imagine yourself as the traveler. You step forward, taking one step after another, each journey feeling like a fresh beginning. You explore new worlds, meet strange beings, discover untold wonders, but each new place only leads you back to where you began. You feel the excitement of discovery, the thrill of exploration, yet with every new experience, you find that the end is always the same. The traveler always returns to the starting point. What does this say about the nature of movement and progress? If every journey ultimately leads back to where it started, then what is the purpose of the journey at all? Is it possible to ever truly escape the loop of repetition, or is the journey itself the destination? The paradox of the infinite traveler makes us question what it means to move forward in life, and whether progress is truly achievable, or if we are simply caught in a cycle that repeats over and over again. Think about this. Every time you move forward, you feel like you're making progress, but in the end, you're always drawn back to where you started. Every destination is simply a reflection of the place you left behind. In this infinite loop, there is no final destination, no place where the journey ends. You keep moving, but you never truly arrive anywhere new. The cycle repeats itself endlessly, and with each repetition, the journey feels both familiar and strange at the same time. This paradox challenges the very idea of progress. We tend to think of life as a journey of forward movement, of growth, of achievement, of reaching new milestones. But what if the journey is not about moving forward at all? What if the journey is simply about returning to where we started each time with new knowledge, new experiences, and a slightly different perspective, but still ultimately returning to the beginning? The infinite traveler's journey raises the question, does true progress ever happen, or are we simply caught in an endless cycle of return? As you continue reflecting on this paradox, Picture the infinite traveler standing still, realizing that no matter how far they've traveled, they are always in the same place. The horizon stretches on endlessly before them, filled with possibilities, but when they take a step forward, they find themselves back at the same point. It's as if the universe itself has closed the loop, offering no escape from the cycle. What does this feel like? Imagine that every step you take brings you back to where you began. The excitement of discovery fades as you realize that no matter how much you learn, no matter how far you go, you always return to the starting point. The paradox of the infinite traveler forces you to question whether true escape is possible or whether the journey itself is its own destination. Now, imagine the traveler embracing the paradox. They stop trying to escape the loop. Instead of seeing the return as a failure, they begin to appreciate the journey for what it is. Each step forward, each discovery, adds something to the traveler's experience. The return is no longer seen as a failure of progress, but as part of the cycle of exploration. They understand that, even if they are always returning to the same point, they are still moving through the journey in a deeper way, each time understanding more, seeing more, experiencing more. The paradox of the infinite traveler teaches us something profound about accepting the cycle of life. Life may feel like an endless loop, with moments of progress and moments of return. But each time we return, we do so with new understanding, new experiences, and a deeper appreciation for the journey. The cycle may never end, but in that endless loop, we find meaning. As the paradox settles in, let go of the need to escape the loop. Just like the traveler, you are part of this cycle, and each return is an opportunity to experience life in a deeper way. You may find yourself returning to familiar places, familiar feelings, but each time you return, you do so with a new perspective. The journey is endless, but it is also full of meaning. Every return is a chance to grow, to reflect, and to find new depth in the cycle of life. The infinite traveler's journey is not about reaching a final destination. It's about moving through the loop with an open heart, embracing the cycle, and finding meaning in the return. The journey, no matter how many times it circles back to where it began, is still worth taking. And with every return, there is a new discovery waiting to be made. 11. The paradox of the last digit. Imagine, for a moment, a number that stretches out in front of you, an infinite string of digits. These numbers continue, uninterrupted, never ending, never stopping. The digits keep appearing, one after the other, as you move along this endless sequence. You feel like you're approaching the end, but when you reach what seems to be the last digit, you find there's another digit after it, and then another. The sequence keeps going, forever. You've been following along for what seems like an eternity, trying to find the last digit, but each time you think you've found it, it fades just beyond your reach, always slipping away into infinity. The last digit is always just beyond your grasp. This is the paradox of the last digit, a number that stretches infinitely, where the concept of a final digit becomes completely meaningless because no matter how far you go, the number never ends. At first, it seems simple. You start counting 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. You feel that sense of progress, the idea that one number leads to another. But as you reach the end, you realize that the very idea of an ending is impossible in this infinite string of numbers. There's no last digit. There is only continuity, an unbroken chain of numbers, a never ending sequence that stretches into the horizon and beyond. Now, picture this. You continue down this number line, carefully marking each digit, writing it down. At first, you're excited because the numbers are familiar. You understand them, and they follow a pattern. But as you keep going, a sense of confusion starts to settle in. You realize that no matter how much you write, no matter how far you go, the end always seems just out of reach. You've reached the last digit, you think. But wait, there's another one. This moment of realization is where the paradox truly begins to unsettle you. The idea of completion seems to vanish, replaced by the overwhelming reality that no matter how much effort you put into reaching the end, there is no finish line in sight. The number keeps going and going and going. You can't ever reach the last digit, no matter how far you move along the line. The more you reflect on this, the more it becomes clear that the concept of an ending itself might be flawed. How can something have an end if it stretches infinitely? The paradox doesn't just challenge our idea of numbers, it questions the very nature of infinity itself. It makes us confront the unsettling reality that, in an infinite world, there is no true finish line, there is no last digit. No matter how much time, effort, or attention you give it, infinity simply cannot be grasped fully. Take a moment to think about the implications of this paradox. What does it mean to live in a world where the end is impossible to reach? When we look at time, or the universe, or even our own lives, we often think of things having an endpoint, a goal, a destination. But this paradox asks, what if that endpoint is an illusion? What if there is no last digit, no final moment, no true end? If infinity is truly endless, what does it mean for our understanding of beginnings and ends? Can we ever reach the final moment, or are we always caught in a cycle of endless progression? Think about your own life. You move through time, step by step, and you imagine there will be a point when everything is done. You think that eventually you'll reach the final chapter of your story, the end of your journey. But what if that moment is always just beyond your reach, like the last digit in an infinite sequence? Every moment, every day, every experience may feel like a step forward, but in reality, there is no final step. You might think you've reached it, but the sequence keeps going. It's an unsettling idea, isn't it? Now, visualize yourself standing at the edge of this infinite number line, looking out into the endless digits that stretch out in front of you. You can't see the end. You can only see the progression, the constant unfolding of new numbers. There is no last digit, no final stop. The sequence is endless. Every digit you add to the line only opens up more space for new digits. The paradox grows deeper, more complex. The more you try to understand it, the further it pulls you into the mystery of infinity. You begin to understand that infinity is not a number, it's an experience where the idea of completeness no longer applies. When you look at this number line, you realize that the end is not something you will ever reach. It simply does not exist. The more you try to push forward, the more you realize that you are moving through a vast expanse of possibilities without any final destination. The paradox is about acceptance. We can't fully grasp infinity because to do so would require a mind that transcends time itself. The last digit is not a thing that can be found or captured. It is simply the realization that infinity has no boundaries, no endpoints. It invites us to reconsider how we approach the idea of completion. If there's no last digit, then how do we measure the end? Can we measure the journey of life or time with the same tools we use to measure finite things? Take a deep breath and sit with the paradox. Let it stretch and expand in your mind. Feel the weight of infinity, how it disrupts our need for closure, for finality, for resolution. In this infinite number, in this endless sequence of digits, we see that some things don't need to have an end. And that realization in itself is freeing. The last digit will never come, but that doesn't make the journey through the numbers any less meaningful. As the paradox fades into your thoughts, notice how it begins to feel lighter. The frustration of never reaching the last digit is replaced with the peace of accepting that infinity is simply a concept we cannot fully grasp. There's no need to keep searching for the last digit. You are part of the infinite journey, and that journey is what matters. The end is not important because the journey is endless. The paradox of the last digit invites you to live in the moment, to experience the infinite progression of time and space, knowing that the end will never come. The beauty of life, like the beauty of this infinite number, is in the journey itself. 12. The paradox of perfect prediction. Imagine a world where it is possible to predict every event before it happens. With absolute certainty, you can know what will occur in the future, whether it's the outcome of a coin toss, the weather for the next year, or even the exact moment someone will make a life changing decision. This ability is not just theoretical, it's real. The future is laid bare before you, a clear path that stretches out in front of you, with no surprises, no unknowns. Every action, every event is predictable. But here's the paradox. If the future can be perfectly predicted, does free will still exist? If everything is already known, then how can we ever make a true choice? If every decision, every moment, is already set in motion, then are we simply actors playing our roles in a script that's already been written? The paradox challenges our understanding of choice, destiny, and the nature of prediction. If the future is completely predictable, does the concept of free will simply vanish? Now, think about this paradox in terms of personal decisions. Imagine you're standing at a crossroads, contemplating a choice. In the world of perfect prediction, you already know which path you will take because it has already been predicted. There's no uncertainty in your choice, it is already determined. The question arises, if you already know the choice you will make, did you truly have the freedom to choose it? Or was the choice simply a part of the inevitable chain of events that you had no control over? As you reflect on this, feel the tension between free will and predetermined fate. If every choice is already written, if every event is known, what happens to the very concept of choice? Can you truly be free if the future is already set in stone? This paradox forces you to confront the idea that Perhaps free will is an illusion. Perhaps in a world where everything is predicted, the feeling of freedom is just another prediction, a part of the plan that we feel is ours to make, but has already been determined. Imagine now that you're living in a world where this perfect prediction is normal, a part of everyday life. You know the exact moments of happiness and sorrow that await you. Every encounter, every event is foretold, and yet the experience of living feels the same. You still feel joy, pain, excitement, and fear, but at the back of your mind, you know it's all been predicted. Each moment feels real, but it's also strangely hollow. If nothing is unknown, if everything is already written, then where does the true experience of living come from? Are we merely observers of our own lives, knowing what will happen, but unable to change it? In a world of perfect prediction, the paradox becomes more profound. The future might seem clear, but the sense of wonder, of discovery, would fade away. If every step you take is already known, can you truly experience the thrill of making a choice, of taking a risk, or of living freely? The more you think about it, the more you realize that perfect prediction would strip away the essence of what it means to live. The unknown, the uncertainty, is what gives life its depth, its beauty, its mystery. Without that uncertainty, what would we be left with? Now, imagine that you have the power to see the future. Every action you take, every event that unfolds, is laid out before you in perfect clarity. You can predict the outcome of every decision, but as you look ahead, you begin to notice something strange. The more you try to predict, the more you realize that the act of prediction itself is altering the future. By knowing what will happen, you are somehow changing what would have happened. The very act of foreseeing the future creates new possibilities, new outcomes. This creates an even deeper paradox. Can you truly predict something if your prediction changes the very course of events? Feel the weight of this paradox. If you can predict the future, but your prediction influences that future, does that mean the future was never truly predictable in the first place? The paradox spirals deeper, suggesting that even the most perfectly predicted event is not fixed. It can be altered simply by knowing about it. Prediction, in this sense, doesn't just uncover the future, it creates it. Think about cause and effect in this world of perfect prediction. If every cause is known, does it mean the effect is inevitable? Can you ever truly make a change if you already know the outcome? The paradox suggests that certainty in the future doesn't offer us freedom, it confines us. If we can predict everything, then everything is locked into place to us, and our role becomes nothing more than to play out the events that have already been determined. We are no longer the creators of our own stories, but rather actors in a drama whose script has already been written. This is where the paradox becomes unsettling. Knowing the future robs us of the thrill of possibility, the magic of unknown outcomes. We lose the joy of discovery because everything has already been discovered. We lose the excitement of choice because every choice has already been made. The future, once a place of potential, becomes a rigid timeline with no room for deviation. Now, let the paradox of perfect prediction settle in. There is no need to solve it, no need to understand it fully. Just sit with the idea that the future is known, and yet, in that knowledge, we lose something vital: freedom, choice, possibility. These concepts are what make life rich, complex, and meaningful, and yet, in a world of perfect prediction, they disappear, leaving behind a reality that is perfectly ordered but also perfectly stagnant. Let go of the need to find answers or to escape this paradox. It exists not to be solved, but to be understood as a reflection on the nature of knowledge and freedom. In the end, it is the unknown that makes life beautiful. The perfect prediction of everything, while it seems like a gift, reminds us that the unknown is what gives life its depth and meaning. 13. The Paradox of the Infinite Hotel, Hilbert's Hotel. Imagine a hotel with an infinite number of rooms, each room occupied by a guest. This hotel, known as Hilbert's Hotel, has no end. Its rooms stretch on forever, with a guest in each room. It seems full, packed with people who each have their own space. But here's the paradox. What happens if a new guest arrives at the hotel? At first, this might seem impossible. After all, the hotel is already full. But because the hotel has an infinite number of rooms, the paradox unfolds. To make room for the new guest, the manager asks each current guest to move from their room to the room numbered one higher. So the guest in room 1 moves to room 2, the guest in room 2 moves to room 3, and so on, with each guest moving one room forward. Now, room 1 is empty, and the new guest can be placed there. So, even though the hotel was full, an infinite number of rooms still allows for new guests to arrive. But here's where the paradox deepens. What happens if infinitely many guests arrive at once? There's still no problem. The manager can shift every current guest to a room number that is a multiple of 2. Room 1 goes to room 2, room 2 goes to room 4, room 3 goes to room 6, and so on. This still leaves all the odd numbered rooms open for the new guests. The hotel, with its infinite rooms, can accommodate an infinite number of new guests, despite being full. Now, take a moment to reflect on this paradox. If the hotel has infinite rooms, it's always possible to add more guests, no matter how many. It doesn't matter how full it seems. Infinity doesn't behave the way we expect finite things to behave. In our world, a full hotel means no more guests can be accommodated, but in the world of Hilbert's Hotel, infinity is a special kind of fullness. It doesn't reach a limit, no matter how many people arrive, no matter how full the hotel gets, there's always more space. The paradox challenges our understanding of space, quantity, and the limitations of reality itself. Imagine being a guest in this hotel. You have your room, you're comfortable, and the hotel is full, just like any other. But then, a new guest arrives in a normal hotel. You would think this would mean you'd have to leave, but in Hilbert's Hotel, your space is never threatened. The infinite number of rooms means there's always a place for everyone, no matter how many people join. You are part of an infinite system, and your place in it is always secure. But the paradox goes even deeper when you consider what happens if infinite guests arrive infinitely often. Can the hotel continue to accommodate new guests forever, or does infinity run into a limit at some point? The fact that the hotel can always accommodate more guests, no matter how many, suggests something strange about the nature of infinity itself. Infinite space doesn't behave in the same way as finite space. The more you try to understand it, the more it seems that infinity isn't just a very large number, it's something fundamentally different from what we think of as normal space. The paradox suggests that our typical concepts of space and numbers are limited by our finite experiences. We think of things as being full when they have a definite number of units, but infinity doesn't work like that. In Hilbert's hotel, full means unbounded, and that changes everything. Think about how infinity works in other aspects of life. If you imagine a world that is truly infinite, would it be like Hilbert's hotel? A world where no matter how much you've already filled it, there's always more room for more. It challenges your thinking about space, limits, and potential. The infinite hotel tells us that limits are an illusion when dealing with the infinite. There is no last guest, no final room. In an infinite world, there is no end to what can exist. Imagine walking through the halls of Hilbert's hotel, seeing an endless corridor of rooms stretching out before you. Each room is occupied, but there is always space to be made for new arrivals. You start to realize that in a world like this, there are no boundaries, no limits to what can happen. The hotel will never be full in the way we think of fullness. Fullness is only a concept that applies to finite things, but in the infinite hotel, the concept of fullness loses its meaning. Now think about your own life in the context of this paradox. What if your life, like the hotel, was infinite? What if there were no limitations to the number of experiences, relationships, or opportunities you could have? Would you feel different? Would your decisions change if you knew there was always room for more? There's a kind of freedom in this paradox, knowing that there is always space for more. No matter how much you've done, no matter how full your life feels, there's always room to grow, always more experiences to be had. But here's another question. If everything is infinite, then does it ever matter how much you fill your life, how many experiences you have, or how many relationships you form? The infinite hotel paradox suggests that even if we constantly add more, the concept of filling something is meaningless when dealing with infinity. It's not about reaching the end. There is no end. As you continue to reflect on this paradox, let the concept of infinity settle into your thoughts. Hilbert's Hotel invites you to consider a reality where space, time, and even potential don't follow the rules of the finite world. It's a reminder that infinity doesn't have limits, and when we try to grasp it with our finite minds, we encounter paradoxes like this one, paradoxes that challenge our understanding of space, numbers, and reality itself. In the end, the hotel will always be full, and it will always have room for more. It will continue to expand forever, just as infinity itself continues, stretching out beyond our comprehension, offering room for all things, no matter how many there are. And in that infinite space, we can take comfort in knowing that there is always more to experience, always more to explore, always more to discover. 14. The paradox of the unsolvable equation. Imagine an equation, a set of symbols, numbers, and operations laid out in front of you. You've seen equations before, and you know how to solve them. With each equation, there's always a way forward, a method, a formula, a set of rules that leads you to the answer. You might need to apply algebraic manipulation, calculus, or other mathematical tools, but in the end, you can always find the solution. That is, until you come across a certain kind of equation, the unsolvable equation. This equation seems simple at first, but as you begin to solve it, something strange happens. No matter how hard you try, you can't find a solution. Every step you take leads you in circles, and no matter how many times you attempt different methods, the answer always remains just out of reach. You begin to wonder, is there even a solution? Perhaps the equation is so complex, so intricate, that it has no solution at all. And yet, you know that every equation has a solution, or at least, that's what you've always been taught. So, what's happening here? This is the paradox of the unsolvable equation, an equation that seems to defy logic, reason, and mathematical principles. If all equations must have a solution, then why does this one resist every attempt to be solved? Imagine the frustration you feel as you continue trying to solve this equation. You've tried everything you know. You've applied every known method, but the answer still eludes you. You begin to question the very nature of mathematics itself. If an equation can be unsolvable, what does that say about the limits of human understanding? Can mathematics itself be flawed, or is there something fundamental about this equation that goes beyond the reach of our current methods? Now, picture yourself looking at the equation again, but this time with the understanding that perhaps the equation itself is not flawed, but rather our approach to solving it. In mathematics, there are countless instances where solutions seem impossible, only to be later uncovered through new theories or insights. The unsolvable equation is not necessarily a dead end. It may simply be a puzzle that requires a new way of thinking, a shift in perspective that hasn't yet been discovered. But there's also another layer to this paradox. What if the equation is designed to be unsolvable? Perhaps it's a reminder that not all problems have answers, not all questions can be solved, and not all mysteries can be unraveled. This equation doesn't have a solution because it cannot have a solution, at least with the tools and methods we have available. As you reflect on this paradox, consider the implications for life itself. How many things in life seem unsolvable? How often do we come across problems that appear to have no answer, no resolution? Whether it's a personal dilemma, a challenge at work, or a seemingly unsolvable puzzle in our relationships, we all face moments where no solution seems possible. The paradox of the unsolvable equation mirrors these moments, showing us that sometimes the struggle to find an answer is as meaningful as the solution itself. In mathematics, when faced with an unsolvable equation, we often don't give up immediately. Instead, we search for new methods, new frameworks, or even entirely new approaches to understanding the problem. Similarly, in life, when faced with seemingly unsolvable problems, we must learn to approach them with creativity, resilience, and an open mind. The paradox tells us that the absence of an answer doesn't mean the problem doesn't matter. Sometimes, the process of solving the equation, the journey toward an understanding, is as important as the resolution. Now, think about the nature of infinity in the context of the unsolvable equation. If the equation stretches on forever, always evading a solution, it becomes a symbol of the infinite nature of knowledge. No matter how much we know, there will always be questions, mysteries, and problems that we cannot solve, no matter how hard we try. This paradox teaches us that some things are beyond our understanding, and that is both humbling and freeing. It reminds us that our pursuit of knowledge is not just about finding answers, but about accepting the mysteries we encounter along the way. If the equation truly has no solution, perhaps the solution is found in the recognition that not everything in life is meant to be fully understood. Some mysteries are just that, mysteries. They exist to challenge our minds, push us to think in new ways, and ultimately guide us toward deeper insights, even if the answers remain elusive. Now, picture yourself taking a step back from the equation. You've been staring at it for what feels like an eternity, trying to solve it with all your might. But instead of continuing your struggle, you pause. You let the equation exist as it is, without needing to solve it. You realize that it's okay for some things to be unsolvable. The equation doesn't need to be solved right now, or perhaps ever. And in that acceptance, you find a new kind of peace. The peace that comes from letting go of the need to have all the answers. The paradox of the unsolvable equation reminds us that not everything needs to be fixed. Not everything needs to be solved immediately. Some problems may never have a solution, and that's part of the mystery of existence. The search for answers is just as valuable as the answers themselves, and sometimes not knowing is where the true insight lies. 15. The paradox of omnipresent failure. Imagine a world where you are capable of achieving anything, where every action you take should lead to success. You've been told that failure is not an option, that with enough effort, determination, and focus, you will succeed in all your endeavors. But here's the paradox. No matter what you try, failure seems to follow you. No matter how hard you push forward, things never seem to work out the way they should. It's as if the very idea of success is always just out of your reach, no matter how much you strive for it. At first, it might seem like bad luck or an unfortunate series of events. But then, you start to notice a pattern. It's not just that you're failing, it's that your failure seems inevitable. No matter what you do, failure always appears in some form, right at the moment when you believe success is within reach. And it's not the kind of failure that you can easily learn from or overcome. It's the kind of failure that seems to creep in and make it impossible to move forward, no matter how hard you try. This is the paradox of omnipresent failure, a world where success is theoretically possible, but failure is always present, blocking every path. If success is achievable by everyone, why does failure appear as an unavoidable force? Why do we keep failing, even when the tools for success are within our grasp? Now imagine standing in the midst of your goals, your aspirations, your desires. You've worked so hard and you're so close to success, but just as you reach for it, you feel it slip away. It's like reaching for the stars and having them drift further out of reach, no matter how much you stretch toward them. With each attempt, you think you've found the way, but the moment of failure always seems to arrive at the last possible moment, as if it's a force designed to keep you from succeeding. In this world, you might start to question everything. Are you doing something wrong? Is there something missing in your approach? Perhaps the failure is a reflection of something deep within yourself. It feels personal, as if it's your own flaw that keeps bringing failure into your life. Yet, the more you question and the more you try to adjust, the more failure seems to follow you around, like an unshakable shadow. The paradox deepens. If success is meant to be attainable, if others are achieving it, then why is failure always looming just beyond the horizon for you? The question becomes not just about why you fail, but about why failure seems to be a constant presence in your life. What does it mean when failure is omnipresent, and how do we break free from it? Now, think about how this paradox impacts your view of the world. If failure is always present, it begins to shape the way you see everything. You start to doubt your own abilities. You second guess your every move, constantly worried that the next step will lead you into another failure. It becomes difficult to distinguish between failure as a lesson and failure as an inescapable force. You start to wonder if success is even possible at all, or if it's just an illusion that some people are lucky enough to experience. As you reflect on this paradox, think about the people you know. Some of them seem to succeed effortlessly, while others, like you, keep falling short. Why are some people untouched by failure, while others face it relentlessly? Is there a secret formula to success that you're missing? Or is failure truly omnipresent, always waiting in the wings to step in and block you from reaching your potential? The more you think about it, the more you realize that the paradox is not about failure itself, but about the very idea that failure can be omnipresent. In this world, failure is not a rare occurrence, nor is it something that only affects those who aren't trying hard enough. Instead, failure feels like a constant, a force that is woven into the fabric of life, affecting everyone, no matter how much effort they put in. The fact that failure is omnipresent challenges your very understanding of effort and achievement. If success requires effort and failure is always there, despite your best efforts, what does that say about the relationship between work and outcome? Imagine now stepping back from the situation. You've been trying for so long to succeed, but failure always seems to block your path. The more you reflect on the paradox, the more you begin to see that failure, in its omnipresence, is actually a part of the process. It's not something to be avoided or feared. In a way, it's not even the failure that matters. It's the effort and the growth that come with it. The fact that you keep trying, despite the failures, is where the real success lies. The paradox of omnipresent failure teaches you a valuable lesson. Failure is not a destination. It's not something that you reach and stay at. It is simply a part of the journey, an inevitable part of the process. The key to overcoming failure isn't to avoid it or to hope for a world where success is guaranteed. It's to learn how to embrace failure, to recognize it as part of the dance between effort and outcome, between action and result. Without failure, there is no learning, no growth, and no movement forward. As you reflect on this, let the idea of failure as a constant companion become a gentle presence in your mind. You may not be able to escape it, but you don't need to. The paradox suggests that failure itself is not the problem, it's the way we perceive it. If you can learn to accept failure, to see it as part of the process, You can move through life with a sense of peace, knowing that each step forward, even if it involves failure, brings you closer to your ultimate goals. The paradox teaches us that failure is inevitable, but it is not something that defines us. It is simply one part of a larger journey. So let the presence of failure become softer in your thoughts and embrace the idea that it's not something to be feared or avoided. It's simply something that is always with us, shaping us, teaching us, and helping us grow. 16. The paradox of meaningless time. Imagine a world where time is continuous, never ending, and never changes. The days roll on endlessly, each one indistinguishable from the last. There is no morning or night, no seasons, no milestones or special moments to look forward to. Every second flows seamlessly into the next without any real sense of purpose or direction. Time in this world is not a tool we use to organize our lives or measure the passing of events. It simply exists without meaning. At first, this might seem peaceful. The monotony of time flowing without any interruption might offer a sense of calm. But as you begin to reflect on it more deeply, the paradox begins to unfold. In a world where time has no meaning, everything becomes static. There are no significant moments, no beginning or end to any event, no accomplishments or failures to mark the passing of time. Everything happens in an endless, indistinguishable blur. What is the value of time if it has no meaning? If every moment is exactly the same as the next, then how do we measure progress? What gives life its sense of direction if time has no purpose? Now, think about how this paradox affects the concept of living. You wake up each day and you perform the same actions as the day before. There's no change, no growth, no sense of achievement or failure. You live in a world where time has no rhythm, no cycle. There's no moment to look forward to, no past to reflect on. Each moment simply exists, and it does so in isolation, without connection to anything else. In this world, what does it mean to live? How do we measure the passage of our lives if there are no milestones, no sense of progress or movement? If every day is the same as the last, what is the purpose of time itself? The paradox of meaningless time forces us to confront the very nature of existence. Does life have meaning without the framework of time? Without the context of time, can we even experience life in a meaningful way? Imagine yourself standing in this timeless world. You look around and see others, but they are all just moving through time, as if they're caught in an endless loop of exactly the same actions. There's no change in their expressions, no hope for something new or exciting. They simply exist, much like the flow of time itself, constant, endless, and without change. Is this a life you'd want to live? In a world where every moment feels exactly like the one before it, the concept of progress disappears. There is no personal growth, no achievement to reach. The passage of time becomes an empty vessel, a container that holds nothing because it moves endlessly without purpose or change. As you reflect on this, you begin to feel the weight of the paradox. Meaningless time makes us question the very value of time itself. Without change, without progress, what does time really mean? It feels like time has lost its direction. In a world without milestones, how do we measure our journey? How do we know that we are moving forward? Without these markers, we lose the sense of purpose that comes with having a past, present, and future. Time in this world becomes a flat, lifeless concept, nothing more than a series of moments strung together without distinction. Now, think about your own life. How does time function for you? Time, in its endless flow, offers us change, a constant march towards something, whether that's an event, an accomplishment, or a future goal. Time allows us to reflect on the past, anticipate the future, and shape the present. The meaning of time comes from how we experience it, how we fill those moments with significance. But what if time were truly meaningless? What if the very essence of time was stripped of meaning and every moment simply passed without a sense of purpose or change? In that moment, we realize that time, while unchanging, is not empty. Time becomes meaningful because we infuse it with meaning. Our experiences, our memories, our milestones, these are what give time its purpose. Without them, time would be nothing more than a number on a clock, ticking away in the background, irrelevant to the lives we lead. Now, picture yourself in a moment where time gains its meaning. The clock ticks on, but it no longer feels like a repetitive movement. Each moment is filled with significance. Each second is part of a larger journey. You move through time not as a passive observer, but as someone who is actively shaping their own narrative. In this way, time is not meaningless. It is full of the moments we choose to fill it with. The paradox is that time without meaning is possible, but it is also something we can create meaning within. As you sit with this paradox, let go of the need to find a definitive answer. In a world where time is meaningless, it's the meaning we create in it that gives it purpose. The paradox is not that time lacks meaning, but that we are the ones who give it meaning through our actions, decisions, and experiences. The meaning of time is not inherent, it's created by the way we live and the choices we make. Without that, time simply passes as an empty, unremarkable stream. As you reflect, let the idea of meaningless time shift into a realization. Time, in its infinite nature, can be both empty and full, depending on how we choose to experience it. In a world where time flows endlessly without change, it's up to us to fill that time with purpose. The paradox, in its depth, shows us that time itself is neutral, but the way we live our lives within it brings it meaning. And with that, we begin to understand that we are the creators of time's significance. 17. The paradox of useless knowledge. Imagine for a moment that you've spent your entire life acquiring knowledge. Every book you've read, every piece of information you've gathered, every skill you've mastered, everything you know to perfection. You've accumulated vast stores of facts, theories, and insights. You can recite the laws of physics, quote ancient philosophers, and recall the chemical composition of countless substances. You are, without a doubt, a master of knowledge. But here's the paradox. None of it matters. None of this knowledge is ever used. It is all completely useless. It doesn't help you in your life. It doesn't change the way you live or the way you interact with the world. The knowledge you've gained has no practical application, and it doesn't enrich your experiences. Despite all your learning, you feel strangely empty. Why does this knowledge exist if it serves no purpose? Why dedicate your life to accumulating facts and understanding when none of it has any impact on your day to day life or the world around you? As you reflect on this paradox, imagine that all the knowledge you've acquired is trapped in your mind, like an elaborate library with books you can never open. You know the answers to every question, but the questions never come. You are equipped with all the right tools, yet there's nothing to build. You've amassed all this wisdom, yet it sits dormant, unneeded, without use. Every fact feels weightless, every theory hollow, and every skill irrelevant. The paradox of useless knowledge forces you to ask, what is the value of knowledge if it does not serve a practical purpose? If knowledge is meant to be applied, then why does it often feel so irrelevant in our lives? You have learned so much, but the more you think about it, the more you realize that much of what we learn is only for the sake of learning, disconnected from the reality we experience. Knowledge is not necessarily linked to meaning or impact, and the paradox asks us whether the pursuit of knowledge is worthwhile if it does not contribute to the world in tangible ways. Now, think about your own experience with knowledge. How many things have you learned in your life that don't seem to matter in the grand scheme of things? How much of what we know really makes a difference? We spend countless hours studying, reading, practicing, but how much of that knowledge really changes our day to day experience? In this paradox, knowledge is both abundant and empty. It exists in vast quantities, but in this world, it has no real purpose. It sits like unused potential, waiting for a reason to be applied. Does this make knowledge itself worthless? But here's where the paradox deepens. While the knowledge itself may seem useless, the very pursuit of knowledge is what gives us purpose. Even though it may not be applied in any practical sense, the act of learning itself is part of the human experience. The process of learning, the challenge of trying to understand something new, becomes meaningful in itself. Perhaps, in the grand scheme of things, knowledge might not always have an immediate use, but in the moment of acquiring it, it shapes us. It transforms our understanding of the world, even if that transformation doesn't result in immediate action. Consider the way learning feels. When you grasp a concept, when a piece of knowledge clicks in your mind, it's like a moment of growth. Even useless knowledge has a subtle power. It enriches the mind, even if it doesn't immediately alter your life. The paradox teaches us that knowledge is not always about utility. Sometimes it's about the journey of learning itself, the satisfaction of understanding, and the sheer joy of expanding your mind. Now imagine that useless knowledge starts to shape your life in unexpected ways. Even though it doesn't seem to have any immediate application, it influences the way you think. It changes the way you approach problems, the way you see the world, and the way you relate to others. In subtle ways, it begins to inform your choices, even if those choices seem disconnected from the knowledge you've accumulated. The paradox reminds you that even knowledge without purpose can still have an effect. It just might not be immediately apparent. As you sit with the paradox of useless knowledge, let go of the need to find an answer. Knowledge doesn't always need to be useful to be valuable. Sometimes the greatest value of knowledge is simply in the process of understanding, in the quiet satisfaction of learning, of growing, and of engaging with the world through the lens of curiosity. The paradox suggests that knowledge may not always have a practical purpose, but it still matters, if only because it enriches our experience and adds depth to our perception of the world. 18. The paradox of limited freedom. Imagine a world where you have the freedom to do anything. You can go anywhere, choose any path, and make any decision. You have the power to shape your life in any way you wish. You are free from constraints, free from boundaries. But here's the paradox: the more freedom you have, the more limited your choices become. In a world of infinite possibilities, you might expect endless opportunity, but instead you feel overwhelmed. The sheer number of choices starts to make you feel stuck. The more options you have, the harder it becomes to choose. The weight of limitless freedom becomes too much to bear. You begin to question: can freedom really be freeing if it leads to indecision, uncertainty, and anxiety? Now imagine standing at a crossroads in life with countless paths ahead of you. Each one offers a different future, a different outcome, but the more you think about it, the more you realize that every decision brings its own weight. Every path seems to have its own set of consequences, and with each decision, you feel the weight of responsibility. The more you think about the freedom to choose, the more you begin to feel trapped by it. This is the paradox of limited freedom. You've been given everything you ever wanted, complete freedom, but with it comes the overwhelming task of making the right choice. The paradox arises because the more unlimited your options are, the more you feel restricted by the fear of making the wrong choice. In this way, your freedom becomes your constraint. Now, think about the concept of rules in life. You might have once thought that the absence of rules would lead to total freedom: no restrictions, no limitations, no boundaries. But in this world of complete freedom, you start to realize that rules might actually be comforting. Boundaries provide a sense of direction, a structure that helps guide your decisions. Without them, the vastness of freedom becomes disorienting. Every choice feels like it's full of infinite possibilities, yet also paralyzingly uncertain. If you were given the power to do anything, where would you start? The paradox asks: is true freedom possible without any limitations? Or does the very idea of complete freedom create a kind of prison? The more choices you have, the less you know which one to make. You become so overwhelmed by the possibilities that you fail to act, even though you are free to do anything. In this way, freedom itself becomes the limit. Imagine you are given a blank canvas and told to paint anything you want. The entire world of art is open to you. You can create whatever you like. There are no rules, no boundaries. And yet, as you stand there with your brush, you find yourself paralyzed. You don't know where to start. The freedom to create anything becomes a burden, a weight that prevents you from making any decision at all. The more options you have, the harder it is to choose the first stroke. This is the paradox of too many choices. Freedom can feel like a gift, but it can also feel like a curse. You might think that with infinite possibilities, your life would be full of excitement, adventure, and opportunity. But instead, you find yourself stuck, unable to make a decision, because the very freedom you crave becomes a source of anxiety. The more freedom you have, the more you realize that true freedom requires boundaries. Think about the restrictions in your life. You might have often wished for more freedom, but as you reflect on this paradox, you begin to see the value of certain limits. Maybe the rules and boundaries you once resented are actually what give you a sense of purpose, of direction, and of meaning. Without them, life becomes an endless void of choices, none of which feels satisfying because every choice is as valid as the next. You begin to realize that freedom doesn't mean endless possibilities. It means the ability to make meaningful decisions within a framework of purpose and structure. Now imagine yourself in a world where freedom is not limitless. Instead, you are given a set of choices that allow you to move forward in meaningful ways. You don't have to worry about making the wrong choice because the boundaries you've set help guide you. You feel more confident in your decisions, knowing that you have a sense of direction. The paradox becomes clear. Freedom is not about the absence of limits. It is about having the right boundaries to give your choices meaning. In this world, you are still free, but your freedom is guided by your own choices, your own values, and your own purpose. The limits you set are not restrictions, they are the framework within which your true freedom exists. The more you embrace these boundaries, the more empowered you feel. The paradox of limited freedom teaches us that true freedom comes not from the absence of constraints, but from having the wisdom to choose the limits that allow us to move forward with clarity and purpose. As you reflect on the paradox of limited freedom, notice how your perception of freedom has shifted. You begin to see that freedom is not just about endless choices, it's about finding a balance, a way to move through life with purpose and direction. True freedom lies not in having no limits, but in choosing the limits that best allow you to achieve your goals, express your creativity, and live meaningfully. 19. The paradox of the infinite mirror. Imagine walking into a room filled with mirrors. Every wall, every surface is covered in reflective glass. You look around and see your reflection staring back at you from every angle. At first, it seems normal. You're just looking at yourself. But then something strange happens. As you gaze into one mirror, you notice your reflection extends into another mirror, and that reflection extends into yet another mirror. The reflections seem endless, stretching on forever in every direction. This is the paradox of the infinite mirror. The more you look into the mirrors, the more you realize that you can never escape the endless reflections. No matter how far you walk, how much you try to turn away, the reflections continue to follow you. There is no end to the mirrors. The reflections seem to repeat infinitely. What happens to your sense of self when you are endlessly mirrored back at yourself? Can you still recognize who you truly are in a world of infinite reflections? Now, imagine standing still in this room, lost in the maze of mirrors. Each reflection shows a version of you. Some reflections seem a little different. Some might show you from a different angle or in a slightly altered light. But none of them are the true you. They are only reflections, images of an image. And yet, they seem to multiply and stretch out, creating an infinite array of versions of yourself. You begin to wonder, which of these reflections is the real you? How do you know which is the true version of yourself when there are countless possibilities staring back at you? In this paradox, the idea of identity begins to blur. The more you see yourself reflected in the mirrors, the less certain you are of which reflection is truly you. Every reflection feels like it could be a different version of yourself, each one slightly more distant from the truth of who you really are. In a room of infinite mirrors, can you ever truly see your real self, or do you become lost in the infinite web of reflections? Now, think about the implications of this paradox. In life, we often think of our identity as something fixed, something we can define and understand. We have a sense of who we are. Our memories, experiences, and actions make us feel solid and real. But what happens when infinite possibilities exist for who we can be, just like the infinite reflections in the mirrors? If we could see every potential version of ourselves, how would we know which one is truly us? This paradox challenges the idea that there is a single version of reality. In the infinite mirror, every reflection creates a new version of who we could be. What if life is just like these mirrors, an endless series of possibilities where we are constantly changing, adapting, and reflecting different versions of ourselves? Can we ever know our true selves when we are constantly shifting between infinite versions of who we could be? Now, imagine stepping deeper into the maze of mirrors. You move from one reflection to another, watching as the mirrors reflect not just your physical image, but your thoughts, your emotions, your dreams, and your fears. Each reflection feels more and more personal, but also more and more distant. The more you see, the more you realize that you will never fully capture who you are because there are too many versions of you, and none of them are the same. You are reflected in every mirror, but none of those reflections can ever truly capture your essence. In this room of infinite mirrors, you begin to wonder, what does it mean to truly know yourself? Can we ever truly know our true nature, or are we forever reflected back to ourselves in 1,000 different forms, always just a little bit out of reach? The infinite mirror creates a world where self understanding is never final, always shifting, always evolving. You are not just one version of yourself, you are infinite, ever changing, and ungraspable. The mirrors reveal the paradox that, in the attempt to understand who we are constantly faced with the infinite possibilities of what we can be, and the reflections never stop. The more you look into these mirrors, the more you begin to feel that identity itself is a reflection of all the possibilities and versions of yourself that could exist. You might never be able to step outside of the infinite mirror, but that's not the point. The paradox teaches us that we are not fixed. We are not just one version of who we are, but rather a reflection of infinite possibilities. In the infinite mirrors, you are not a single identity. You are an endless array of possibilities, all of which are valid, all of which are parts of your ever shifting nature. In the paradox of the infinite mirror, we see that our true selves are not confined to one image or one version of ourselves. We are always reflecting, changing, and becoming in an infinite loop of self discovery. As the paradox settles into your thoughts, let it unfold like a gentle wave. You may never fully know who you are, but perhaps that's not the point. The journey of self discovery is not about finding the final reflection, but about understanding that we are constantly changing, constantly reflecting new versions of ourselves just like the infinite mirrors. The paradox is not to be solved, but to be embraced. The infinite mirror shows us that identity is fluid, ever changing, and multifaceted, and in that realization, we find freedom. 20. The paradox of the overlooked possibility. Imagine a scenario where you are faced with a decision, an important choice that will shape your future. You spend hours, maybe days, thinking about it, weighing the pros and cons, analyzing every possible outcome. You are sure that you have considered every option, explored every possible path. You feel confident that you are making the best decision, the right decision. But then, just after you've made your choice, you realize something astonishing. You missed a possibility. There was one option you didn't consider, one outcome you overlooked, and it could have been the perfect choice. This is the paradox of the overlooked possibility. It's not just about missing an option, it's about the realization that there's always something else that could have been considered, something that was outside your view, beyond your perception. No matter how carefully you analyze a decision, there's always the chance that the one perfect answer was something you simply didn't see. Now, imagine you've made your choice, but in the back of your mind, the feeling lingers, the feeling that there was something you missed. You keep going back to the decision, replaying it over and over in your mind, trying to figure out what that overlooked possibility was. The more you think about it, the more it becomes clear. Your decision wasn't wrong, but it wasn't complete. There was something else, something subtle, that you didn't take into account. And now that you've realized it, it seems like the perfect fit for your life, your needs, your desires. But it's too late. You can't go back and change it. This paradox makes you question the very nature of decision making. If there's always something you've missed, always another possibility lurking just outside your awareness, then can you ever truly make a perfect decision? Is it even possible to consider every possibility? The more you think about it, the more you realize that no matter how much effort you put into making the right choice, there's always the chance that you overlooked something important. Consider this. In our decision making process, we are often limited by what we know, by the information we have. We can only make decisions based on the knowledge we possess at the time. But what if there's always something beyond that knowledge? Something outside of our awareness, something that could shift the course of our decision making entirely. The paradox of the overlooked possibility reveals the inherent imperfection of our choices. No matter how careful we are, no matter how thorough our analysis, there's always room for something we didn't see. Think about a time when you made a decision and later realized you had missed an option. Maybe it was a job opportunity, a relationship, a place to live, or even a simple choice about how to spend your time. At first, the option you missed seemed irrelevant, something you didn't need to consider. But later, with hindsight, it seems so obvious. The more you reflect on it, the more you realize that the missed possibility could have changed everything. In that moment, you begin to question, is it even possible to make the right choice when there's always something we miss? Now, imagine a world where every decision is perfectly clear, where you always see every possibility and you never overlook anything. Would that world even be possible? In reality, we are constantly making decisions with incomplete knowledge, often not realizing the implications of our choices until after the fact. The paradox suggests that every choice is inherently imperfect because we are always working with limited information. There is no such thing as a perfect decision because there's always the chance that we've missed something, something that could have made our choice better, clearer, or more aligned with our desires. This paradox makes us question the nature of knowledge itself. If the best decision we can make is based on the knowledge we have at the time, does that mean the perfect decision will always be just beyond our reach? How do we come to terms with the fact that every choice is tainted by the possibility that we missed something important? Think about how this paradox shows up in everyday life, whether it's the small decisions, what to eat for dinner, what to wear, or the big ones, who to marry, what career to pursue, where to live. We are constantly confronted with the reality that we can never see every possible outcome. No matter how many options we consider, there will always be one that we overlooked, one that we didn't fully take into account. But rather than feeling overwhelmed by this, perhaps the paradox encourages us to accept the imperfection of our decisions. It's not about finding the perfect answer, it's about recognizing that, in a world full of infinite possibilities, we can never account for everything. The paradox of the overlooked possibility shows us that our choices, while imperfect, are still valid, and that the missed possibilities don't diminish the value of the path we've chosen. Now, imagine stepping away from the decision making process entirely. Instead of focusing on what you missed, you embrace the possibility that your decision, as it stands, is enough. You might not have considered every option, but that doesn't make your choice any less significant. In fact, it's the very imperfection of your decision that gives it its value. The paradox invites us to let go of the need for perfect decisions and instead focus on the meaning we find in the choices we make, even if they are imperfect or incomplete. In this light, the overlooked possibility becomes not a failure, but a reminder that life is full of choices, full of paths that we may never fully explore. And while we can never see every possibility, the paths we choose still lead us to new experiences, new growth, and new understandings of ourselves. The paradox of the overlooked possibility isn't about regret. It's about embracing the fact that in the end, our choices are what define us, not the ones we missed. The paradox of the vanishing present. Imagine, for a moment, that the present moment is the only moment that truly exists. All that you can ever experience, all that you can ever feel, think, or know happens now. Yet, as you focus on the present, it begins to slip away into the past almost immediately without you even realizing it. The second you recognize the moment, it's already gone, vanished, absorbed by the very past that it once created. This is the paradox of the vanishing present. The very nature of time makes the present moment impossible to hold. It's always fleeting, always slipping through your fingers like water. You cannot grasp the present because the moment you attempt to understand it, it shifts into the past. The present, by its very definition, exists for only a fraction of a second before it disappears, making it an elusive and impermanent reality. Now, let's reflect on the nature of this paradox. You wake up, and in that instant, you are living in the present. But as you become conscious of it, thinking about the present moment itself, you realize that it's already moved on. You can never truly live in the present because it is always escaping from you. Every thought you have about the present is a thought about something that is no longer here. You can only recall it, never fully experience it. This paradox makes you wonder, can the present truly exist if we can never hold on to it? If, as soon as we recognize it, it slips away, then is it even real? We often talk about living in the moment, but the paradox of the vanishing present suggests that it's not possible. The moment we try to live in it, we are no longer in it. We are simply aware of it, and that awareness carries it into the past. Now, let your mind consider the implications of this. We often think of time as a continuous flow, but in reality, the present is never really present. By the time we reflect on it, it has already become part of the past. Imagine a river flowing past you. You can never touch the exact drop of water that just passed because it's already gone. The flow of water, like the flow of time, moves too quickly, and the present is always just out of reach. It is real only for a moment, but that moment is gone instantly. Think about how you experience time. You live in the present, but as soon as you acknowledge it, you've already stepped out of it. If you're thinking about this moment right now, it's no longer the present moment. It's a memory of the present, and thus it's already in the past. This realization can feel unsettling. How can you ever truly live in the moment if that very moment is constantly slipping away? Is there any way to experience life fully in the present? Let's take a deeper look at the dynamics of memory. Your brain works tirelessly to capture and preserve every moment. But no matter how hard it tries, it can never hold on to the present moment itself. Instead, what it captures is always a second-hand version of the past. When you remember something from today, it is already colored by your perception and your reflection on the event. It's no longer the raw present, it's a recollection, something that has already slipped from your immediate grasp. Now, think about this paradox from a philosophical perspective. We often talk about the present moment as the most important part of life. We urge ourselves to focus on the here and now, to avoid being distracted by the past or the future. But the paradox suggests that the present is so fleeting that we can never fully experience it. It is always in motion, always moving away from us. The more we try to understand it, the more it escapes us, like trying to hold water in your hands. As you think more about this paradox, you begin to question the very nature of time itself. If the present is always vanishing, does that mean time is really just a succession of moments, each one fading before we can experience it fully? Are we forever trapped in a flow of time that moves too quickly for us to experience any moment in its full, undistorted form? What does it mean to live when the present is already gone by the time we try to embrace it? This paradox suggests that our relationship with time is one of constant loss. We never truly experience time because it never stops moving forward. Each moment you try to hold on to is already part of the past before you can even fully feel it. The present moment is never static. It is always dynamic, always moving, and always slipping through your perception. Now reflect on how this paradox challenges our sense of self. If the present is always vanishing, how do we build a sense of identity? How do we understand who we are when we are constantly shifting from one moment to the next? Your sense of self is constructed in time, in the flow of past memories and the anticipation of the future. But what happens when the present moment itself becomes unattainable, a transient thing that's gone before it's fully understood? Is identity, then, simply a series of moments pieced together, none of which can be fully experienced? The paradox of the vanishing present forces us to confront the fact that time is not something we can truly grasp. We can't hold on to the present because it is constantly moving. Our attempts to understand time, whether through reflection, contemplation, or awareness, only push the present further away. As you sit with this paradox, allow yourself to embrace the ephemeral nature of the present. The fact that the present slips away doesn't make it less important. In fact, the paradox shows us that the elusive nature of the present moment is what makes it so precious. The fact that we can never fully capture the moment makes it all the more meaningful. Every moment you experience is a fleeting, unrepeatable event, and that very finiteness gives it its value. The vanishing present invites you to appreciate life in its impermanence. The paradox doesn't suggest that time is something to be feared or regretted. It simply reminds us that we can never hold on to the present, and in that realization, we find freedom. Life moves, and we move with it. The present moment, while always disappearing, is full of potential, full of experience, even if it's only here for a brief moment. The paradox of changing history. Imagine that you have the power to travel through time, to go back to any moment in history and change it. The possibilities are endless. You could prevent a great war, stop a tragedy, or perhaps make a small change that would ripple through time, altering the course of the future in profound ways. You stand at the threshold of history with the ability to reshape the past. But here's the paradox. What happens if the change you make is the very reason history unfolds as it did in the first place? Can you truly change the past, or does the act of changing it create the events that were always meant to happen? What if the history you're trying to change is the very thing that led you to make the change in the first place? Now, let's reflect on the implications of this. You travel back in time and prevent a critical event. Maybe you stop the assassination of a key leader, or you stop a natural disaster from occurring. At first, it seems like you've done something incredible. You've changed history. The world you return to is different. But then, something strange happens. The change you made causes a new chain of events, a new reality that feels strangely familiar. What if the act of changing the past was always part of the timeline, and the history you attempted to alter was a necessary precursor to your intervention? This paradox suggests that history itself might be self correcting. It's as though the past has an inherent logic, a way of ensuring that even when we try to change it, things ultimately unfold the way they were always meant to. If you change a critical event, it sets off a series of events that leads to the same outcome, or perhaps even a similar one, proving that some things in history are destined to happen no matter what we do. Imagine this. You're standing in front of a decision, a turning point in history. You could make a choice that would drastically alter the future, but as you reach for it, You start to realize that the very act of choosing to change history is what led to this moment in the first place. It's like a paradoxical loop. You make the change because you're aware of it, but the change you make is what causes you to be aware of it in the first place. The paradox challenges our understanding of free will and determinism. If history is changing and yet remains unchanged, does that mean history was always destined to follow this path? Think about your own life and the decisions you've made. How many times have you looked back and thought, if only I had done things differently? We all feel the urge to change our pasts, whether it's a missed opportunity, a regret, or a decision that seems to have led us down the wrong path. But what if changing the past doesn't lead to a better outcome? What if the very thing we want to change is the reason we became who we are? In the paradox of changing history, the past isn't just a series of events, it's a part of our own story, our own identity. If we change a piece of that story, we might lose something essential. The past shapes who we are, and while we might long for a different outcome, the changes we wish to make could erase parts of our identity, parts of our experiences that made us who we are today. This raises the unsettling question: can we really change the past without changing ourselves in ways we can't predict? Now, let's imagine that time itself is like a delicate fabric. Every thread is a moment, and each moment is connected to the next. When you pull on one thread, when you attempt to change a moment in time, you alter the entire weave of the fabric. The paradox becomes clear. Can we truly change one piece of history without unraveling the entire fabric? If we change a single event, do we risk disrupting everything that came after it? What if the small change we make to history causes larger, unintended consequences, altering everything from relationships to entire civilizations? This idea is what we call the butterfly effect. A small change in one part of the timeline leads to massive, unpredictable consequences elsewhere. The paradox asks, is it possible to change history without triggering a cascade of events that make the change seem insignificant? Now consider the infinite timelines that could result from your actions. Imagine that for every change you make, a new timeline is created. Every decision you make splits history into a new branch, each with its own version of events. The paradox of changing history suggests that every possibility exists simultaneously, each one leading to a different version of the present. When you change history, you're not just altering a single path, you're creating new realities with every choice. But here's the paradox: if all of these possibilities exist at once, can history ever be truly changed? Can you ever escape the timeline you are in? No matter how hard you try, the act of changing history may only result in the creation of more history, each change giving rise to another version of the past that leads to the present, where you're still making decisions and changes. Imagine that you're standing at the center of all these timelines, each one branching off into endless possibilities. As you look around, you begin to realize that there's no ultimate answer. Every decision you make leads to more choices, more changes, more versions of the world. The paradox of changing history shows us that history is fluid, constantly shifting and evolving, and perhaps, in the end, there is no true version of history, only the one that we are living in at this moment. Think about time travel for a moment. If you traveled back in time and changed something, would you still exist in your current form, or would you create a new version of yourself in a different timeline? The paradox tells us that even though history may appear fixed, it's always in flux, and we are constantly changing it. Every time we act, we add a new thread to the fabric of time, making history infinitely malleable and infinitely unpredictable. So, what does this paradox teach us? It reminds us that history is not as rigid as we often think. Every action, every choice can shift the timeline, but it also shows us that some things, perhaps the most important things, are destined to remain unchanged. History, like time, is both a constant and an ever changing phenomenon, and as we attempt to alter it, we realize that we are part of a larger, unstoppable process, a process that is both determined and unpredictable, both fixed and infinite. As you reflect on the paradox of changing history, allow yourself to embrace the mystery of time. The more we try to understand it, the more we realize that history is not just a sequence of events, it is a collection of choices, paths, and possibilities, all intertwined. The paradox asks us to think about our place in history, not as isolated individuals, but as part of a larger tapestry of time, where our choices, no matter how small, contribute to the unfolding of the future.